Are we going to let technology determine what we want education to be in the future? Or do we have a clear education vision? And within that, choose technology and choose uses of AI where they really support our vision, but maybe choose not to use them where they're not really aligning with how we want people to learn and to teach. And so, of course, I'm in favor of that second view where we're really clear about people first, and then we pick technology.
Hey everyone, welcome to AI Trends with Aish. This is Aish Bala, your host. Join me in this series as I chat with industry experts, thought leaders, and professionals to gain insights into how artificial intelligence, or AI, is shaping the future of work. Whether you're a high schooler curious about AI in any industry, or a working professional looking to gain more knowledge, this series definitely has something for you. In today's episode, I am thrilled to introduce Dr. Jeremy Roschelle, a visionary leader at the intersection of education, technology, and AI. Dr. Roschelle is dedicated to exploring how rigorous research and scalable innovations can advance education. Currently serving as the executive director at Digital Promise, he co-leads the Learning Sciences research team. He is particularly interested in how technology can improve mathematics education and in digital learning platforms as infrastructure for research. With a portfolio backed by institutions like the National Science Foundation, Institute of Education Sciences, and the Gates Foundation, Dr. Roschelle stands as a recognized figure in groundbreaking research. His expertise spans computer-supported, collaborative learning, emerging technologies, and technology in mathematics education. Dr. Roschelle is a fellow of the International Society of the Learning Sciences and an associate editor at the Journal of the Learning Sciences. He has an undergraduate in computer science at MIT and a PhD in learning sciences from UC Berkeley. Join us as we explore the dynamic landscape of AI and its impact on education. It's an episode packed with insights and transformative ideas that will reshape the way we learn AI. Without further ado, Dr. Roschelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
Great, so let's just dive into the questions then. So Dr. Roschelle, your journey from MIT to leading learning sciences research is truly fascinating. So my first question is, how did your early experiences shape your career path, specifically leading you toward the intersection of technology and education?
Yeah, thanks. It's fun to start digging into a little history. So I was an MIT student, and I went there. I thought I was going to study undergraduate physics. And I just couldn't stand the way they taught physics. It was all equations on blackboards and all math, and there's no insight, no concepts. And so I drifted over towards computer science, where they were really pioneering new ways of teaching computer science at the time. Abelson and Sussman were inventing their famous course. And through that, I loved computer science because they really did explain all the concepts. And I started to drift into the Logo Lab, which was a big thing at MIT at the time. They were inventing the computer language for children called Logo. And at the same time, it's the same people that were involved in AI at MIT that were working on programming languages for kids. And I just got completely fascinated by the idea that technology could help us learn things better. And in particular, I had some really profound experiences in a music course that I took while I was an undergraduate at MIT. Professor Jean Bamberger was teaching a course using a variant of the Logo programming language called Music Logo. And she was using it to explore the structure of Logo and how could you describe parts of music like being parts of an algorithm. And so, for example, in a project I did, we took Beethoven's Fifth, which was da-da-da-dum, and then it repeats that in different ways. Da-da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. Okay, I'm not a great singer. You don't want to hear me sing. But the idea is we could describe in a computer program just taking that first phrase and then manipulating it to produce the whole bit of the symphony. And then some parts you couldn't describe that way, and that was interesting too. So I had this profound, like, new way of looking at music, and that made me got me really interested in how people learn and how technology could help. So I went off to Berkeley, where they were starting a new program. And the new program was looking at the intersection of science and math learning and technology. And I began to study that. And the deeper I got into it, the more fascinated I was. And so here I am today, still studying some of those same issues.
That's awesome. And I think it's really interesting how you sparked your career and your interest from music. And I think it's really important that people find the things that they're most passionate about and continue with that. So thank you for that background. My second question is, so when it comes to the shaping of AI policies in education, we usually hear the various stakeholders such as government, education departments, education ministries, educational institutions, teachers, just to name a few. A question that I have based on this is, could you share your thoughts on how various entities are shaping AI in education?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Um, let's start from educational technology for a second. Really, educational technology started to accelerate over the past 20 years, with it now becoming expected that students will have access to a one-to-one device, they'll have connectivity, and that'll be a really important part of their schooling. And so that as that became true, not only did governments, but a set of nonprofit organizations got involved in, are there any potential problems with that? And even before AI, there were problems. There were problems with student privacy and data security and student information being leaked or being sold. And so a set of organizations grew up around that kind of issue and that kind of challenge. And so today, in addition to the list of organizations that you list, like education departments and ministries, you have a set of nonprofit organizations that have had, now a couple decades warm up to think about some of the issues we have with educational technology. And now we see AI come onto the scene. And not only does it have the privacy and data security potential issues, but there are other issues that might require disclosure, regulation, et cetera. For example, problems of bias or unfairness in the software. Especially in the United States, there's like a coalition of organizations who are all involved in this. The US Department of Education has been involved. The White House issued an executive order that was really important uh, late last year. The National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Standards and Technologies. So you have a lot of government, but I'll give you an example from today. The National Institute of Standards and Technologies has a request for information where they're asking the public to tell them what are the safety issues that they are most concerned about. So there you have an interaction between government and people. All the kinds of people you list can work together to inform policy. Yeah, so there's a lot of different players involved, and I think we've seen so many groups be activated because they've been there before with the data privacy and security issues, and they know they're going to have to do more this time.
Perfect. So, just as a follow-up question, which of these entities do you think are at the forefront of the changing of education landscape, and which entities are playing, a sort of catch-up in that area?
Well, I'd like to think the place I work, Digital Promise, is at the forefront. We're a nonprofit organization, about 200 people, and Digital Promise works really at the intersections of research, educators, and innovation. That's been our mission for a long time. And on behalf of schools, but also people going into the workforce and also higher education. And I work in the research group, Digital Promise. So, we at Digital Promise are involved, like one example is we're supporting the US Department of Education as they start to put out reports and policy documents around AI in education. Also involved with the National Science Foundation through one of the AI institutes, Engage AI. And those are groups that are funded to work on these issues from a research perspective, but also share information with the public as part of that. So, I think Digital Promise is at the forefront. I think the National Science Foundation in the US is at the forefront because it's funded 5 institutes, each $20 million to address AI in education, and it's funded 25 institutes overall about AI, but not in education. So I think there's government at the front, and in the nonprofit sector, there's a group called EdSafe AI, led by Aaron Moat, and I think they're very much at the forefront of bringing together on these people on these issues, but also a lot of other smart organizations that are participating in EdSafe and AI, but also working on their own. And I'm sure I'll leave some out here, but I'll mention a few. There's one called ISTE, ISTE, COSIN. There's SIIA, which is the software industry, American Federation of Teachers. Just many organizations are coming together to address these issues. And I know I left some important ones out of that list, but that's what's top of mind.
Great. Yeah. Just going back to your specific company, where do you think some of the challenges lie in trying to, adapt to things that are happening in the world and keep your company going with, like newer trends?
Right. I mean, well, with AI, we're looking constantly at a moving target. And so people are just starting to feel comfortable, and not all of them. If you talk to educators, there are leaders in education and teachers and students all over the map with how much they understand AI, from not really ever having tried it to using it every day.
Yeah.
And so they might think they know what it is because they have a lot of experience with one of the popular chatbots. But even that is changing, where it's all going multimedia, and you'll be able to interact with videos, and you'll be able to interact between text and images in new ways. And so things are just staying on top of it is one of the challenges. But I think the other thing that's just like a top level, really big concern is, are we going to let technology determine what we want education to be in the future? Or do we have a clear education vision? And within that, choose technology and choose uses of AI where they really support our vision, but maybe choose not to use them where they're not really aligning with how we want people to learn and to teach. And so, of course, I'm in favor of that second view, where we're really clear about people first, and then we pick technology. But it's not easy. What grabs the headlines is what's the new things that AI can do every day. And so it's hard to keep the educational vision first and foremost.
Great. Yes. Thank you for that insight. So my next question is related to student-teacher collaboration. So Dr. Roschelle, how can students actively collaborate with their teachers to introduce AI tools in the classroom setting?
One thing I've been excited to see and hear about from the educators we work with, and it's a really cool thing about Digital Promise, that it's in touch with a lot of educators, a lot of leading educators all over the country. For example, we have a League of Innovative Schools, and the League of Innovative Schools is 150 districts all over the country that are working together on innovation. And we get together regularly. So one of the things I learned from the League is that students and teachers are really excited to discuss ethics together. Like, what are uses of this new technology that are responsible and safe? And which kind of uses do we want agreements we're not going to do? And where are the dangers? And so I think it's exciting that there's a generation of students who want to talk about those issues and have strong opinions. Maybe because social media didn't go so well for them. Maybe they're a high school student now, and in middle school, they had some things they didn't like that they experienced as they first started using technology socially. And so I think a great place to start for educators and for teachers and for students is just around ethics. And I'll give you one example. A colleague of mine at Vanderbilt, Sarah Burgess, and her colleagues are working together on a student-led AI Bill of Rights. So they're taking the AI Bill of Rights that the White House put out as an example document, and they're rewriting it in terms that make sense to students so they can start to express from a student's perspective what are rights and responsibilities with AI. So to me, that's just super exciting. that teachers and students are collaborating together around ethics. I think another great area we're seeing a lot of excitement is around inclusivity and students who may have a disability and may need, different modalities, different approaches to learning. And AI seems to have some really great tools for that and its ability like to work with voice instead of typing or to work more visually or to work less visually. And so we're seeing just reports from teachers who are collaborating with students to figure out like, can this make it easier for a student who who has different strengths and different ways of approaching the world to still participate fully in the lessons and in the classroom? So I think those are two really exciting areas. Of course, a third one is we hear just lots of reports from teachers of students are discovering things they can do with AI and they're sharing those with their teachers. And so in some cases, there's a great partnerships of discovery with teachers and students together. And I just, want there to be rules or guidelines around that. It's a safe area or a sandbox where they can explore together. Because there can be, like, it's unsafe to put your personal information in some of these chatbots. No telling what'll happen to your personal information. And so we can't just try everything. We have to put some bounds and make sure students stay safe and teachers stay safe as they explore what's possible. But unless they explore it, they're not going to know how to use it. So we do have to create that sandbox.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's really important that you bring up that students should be able to rewrite themselves what their future is going to be with AI.
Mhm.
So thank you for pointing that out. My next question is for passionate students about AI in education, what projects can they undertake to encourage teachers and other stakeholders to embrace these technologies for enhanced learning?
So there's also a lot of nice resources emerging for AI literacy and cool projects that students and teachers can do together where they can get their hands on some AI technologies. Not just the chatbots, but also some other ones that have been created specifically for education. And so, I guess I'd encourage people to get out there and just search on AI and literacy, and you'll very quickly get a sense of some of the organizations that are putting out resources. A bunch of them have been National Science Foundation funded as well, because we might think AI started like last year, but it didn't. It started almost 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the National Science Foundation has been investing in resources, investing in people to create resources for AI in education for a long time. And so there's some great examples out there of projects that you could be doing together. And just remembering back to the early days of Logo, I started with the history when I was in the logo lab. Even then, people were doing really cool stuff with writing code that could help create poetry and getting your hands on and making it yourself. And so that's all still possible to I can manipulate words in really interesting ways. And so I guess I encourage people to find their passion and then look around for AI projects that resonate with that passion that they could explore.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you so much for that insight. So my next question is about boundaries in AI. So what are some boundaries that guardrails students must be aware of to make sure they are following ethical practices while using AI tools and platforms to complete schoolwork?
Absolutely. Well, certainly any tool you're using out there in the cloud, on the web, you want to be careful about, do you trust this company? Who are they? And what information are you giving them? And, is it safe to give them that information about yourself? So there are, basic privacy, cybersecurity, data security issues, ton of resources to help people learn about those things already exist, but you got to start there and it's not just AI. Anything you're going to do on the net, you really ought to start with the data privacy and security. Then you really have to be aware of issues of bias in these tools. They are AI tools are built by taking texts that are already on the internet and finding patterns in them and then producing new texts based on the patterns they found.
Yeah.
Well, if there are biases in those old patterns, they're going to repeat in the new patterns. So maybe you're using AI to help do a research project about pioneers of computer science. And what if the history that is out there is biased to only have men or biased to mostly feature people from the United States and not other parts of the world that
Right.
were pioneers in computing? Well, it's true of any source that you find on the internet. You just have to be aware of its biases that are possible. And I think, one of the big things that people have to be aware of is, especially if AI is making a choice for them or recommending a choice, that it could be discriminatory in what it's choosing. If an AI is being like a guidance counselor and saying, based on patterns, this career might be good for you. Let's just imagine, this isn't true today, but let's just imagine AI was happening in this way when I was a kid. And at that time, the professions open to women were nursing, teaching, and a few others. And just, it was harder. So what if all that career guidance, like every time it encounters a girl, it's saying, well, based on my AI knowledge of the world, you should only go into teaching or nursing. Well, you got to be aware of algorithmic discrimination of that type, where it may seem like a wise recommendation, but it's really just based on untrue stereotypes that we want to break out of. And so, it's just a lot of things to be careful about as you begin playing with AI. And of course, if we're talking about educational contexts, you have to truly represent how you did your research and represent your work as your own. Um, Once you lose your academic integrity, it's a hard thing to recover. And so you always want to be really proud of what you did as your own work. And if you use different resources, you want to be clear with whoever you're turning the work into, how you use those resources. And it's just not worth taking chances with that kind of thing. The good news on that one is people were really concerned about cheating in the beginning. I don't think it's been as bad as people
Yeah.
it was going to be. It goes back to the kids want to be involved in ethics. And so if you can have those conversations openly with your teachers, your professors, then I think everyone's going to feel safer if the rules are being laid out and people know that there are academic honesty policies that they've got to follow.
Yeah, of course. And just adding on to some points that you included, I think using AI, especially like newer ones that are coming out, is very important to like, show you the steps in how to solve a problem instead of necessarily
Mhm.
solving it for you so that you can understand it while still using your mind to solve the actual problem.
Yeah. With my colleague Judy Fusco, we've been talking about how AI is like a output completion machine, a
Yeah.
lot of what we're experiencing. But the learning process is not just about the fastest route to outputs. It's about the teachers propose certain activities and work products because of the thinking they want you to do to get there. And if you just cut to the chase and get to the output without doing the thinking, well, you're not going to have learned very much. And like if you're putting your time into your education and you're putting that hard work in, you want to get the learning benefits. You're really just hurting yourself if you
Yeah.
are cutting to the answer. But I know like it's stressful and just temptations. So anyway, I think we need to think about all that.
Of course. So, my next question for you is in your experience, what role can students play in providing a sense of training for teachers to be comfortable with AI tools and technologies?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Well, when I was like in elementary school, like I helped set up the film projector. And that's why I think kids have always been volunteers helping their teachers with new technologies. And so I think they can still do that today. I mean, you're going to have some teachers who are really sophisticated. You're going to have others that are newer. And I think it's always a great opportunity when instead of knowledge just flowing one way from teacher to student, that it's more interactive and collaborative. So just tremendous opportunities for teachers and students to work together.
Yeah, I agree. It's really important that students guide teachers to AI and its possibilities, since teachers might have a sort of like closed mindset to AI and think it is like detrimental to students' learning instead of can
Yeah, so I think if kids talk about how they're using it, why they find that useful,
right,
and why they're excited about it, I think that's really helpful. I think, we all have a tendency to just like get a little tunnel vision, and maybe we read a story in the news or something, and we think that's how students are going to use it. But that's one thing that's true about generative AI right now. There's just so many ways to use it. So I think unless students and teachers talk and parents talk, they're just not going to uncover what the possibilities are.
yes, I totally agree. So my next question is basically following up on understanding educators' needs. In order to bridge the gap between students and teachers in the AI adoption, how important is it for students to understand the specific needs of teachers and their unique backgrounds?
Yeah. Well, I think one just really basic thing for students to remember is like teachers have a really hard job.
Right.
And so one thing that's been exciting for teachers is AI as a productivity tool for themselves. And maybe for simple tasks like, they've got to write a letter to a parent or update some document or create a spreadsheet to analyze grades or whatever it is they need to do. So I think we all like it's great to talk about all the teaching and learning opportunities, but I think it could overwhelm teachers too because they're just working so hard already, and it's one more thing. So I think a great thing is for students to ask their teachers, like, are there some pretty routine parts of your job that are really not fun for you and take a lot of time and take you away from what you really want to be spending your time on? And could we think of ways to help you with that, like create that spreadsheet or whatever? I think that'd be a great place to start and create a great bond between the students and teachers, just that they see that their teachers are looking for if their students care about how hard they work and they care about their teachers having better jobs and being excited about their jobs. So I think it's a great opportunity for students to talk about, well, what is the job of teaching? I think, we just look at our teachers as a role and maybe we complain about them because we don't like how they do this or that.
Yeah.
They're people who really care about students and they're working really hard. They have tough jobs and they're putting their all into it. And so it's a great opportunity for some mutual respect.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's also important to realize for students, especially, I'm also guilty of this, of just realizing that teachers are also, it's their first time experiencing AI like this, and they're also growing with newer generations. So it's important to keep them in mind as well when they are making decisions in terms of AI.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
great.
at
So,
this point, everyone has a lot of experiences with technology. So every person has experiences of the good and the bad.
yeah,
And I think students will find their teachers pretty open-minded and have lots of different ideas about technology. But I think we just shouldn't make assumptions, right, about what people will see as a concern or a great opportunity. We just have to ask and talk to each other.
perfect. So my next question is, do you believe in the potential of student-led AI initiative within schools? And how might students initiate and lead projects that involve both peers and maybe teachers or faculty?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, I think it's the thing we're talking a lot about like what is our educational vision? What do we want the world to be like? And so another one of my colleagues, Michael Chung, he's a researcher affiliated with Colorado and Berkeley, two graduate schools. He's been doing a lot of like futurism workshops with high school students. And I just went myself this weekend. I'm in Washington, D.C. right now. And I
Nice.
went over this weekend just yesterday. It was open on January 1st. And I went over to the African American History and Culture Museum. And there was an Afrofuturism exhibit that I thought was super cool. And it was just about the whole strain of culture that's a little science fictiony, but it's really trying to imagine what the best possible future would look like. And I think we need a lot of student work like that. Like the world is changing, And student voice is like, what do students want the world to look like? And
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, do you want people a generation older deciding your future? You want to take it in your own hands. And it's ever more important that students take their future in their hands. And like AI is democratizing in a way. Everyone has access to really powerful tools. So I think those are some really important conversations. And students where they're thinking about not just themselves as individuals, but about the collective well-being of their fellow students in school. Students have experienced like all kinds of things with social media that may have affected them, may have affected their friends, and that weren't the kind of world they want to live in. Well, can you put your hands and your voices and your minds together and really be clear about the world you do want? And so I'm excited about initiatives like that.
Yeah, great. Me too. So my next question is, what are some areas where students can use AI outside of the school curriculum to enhance their learning, creativity, and well-being?
Yeah. Well, it's always great when students get involved in their household and their community, maybe their church group or a club they belong to. And so, just so many opportunities. But, like AI can help you learn how to make a website. Maybe you can help a club you belong to have a better website. Or, just maybe helping your family with budgeting. Uh, it can help you create like little spreadsheets that are customized to what your family might need and just for yourselves as students to learn about being responsible with money. It's hard. I mean, money's complicated. So
Yeah,
there's so many ways to get involved out there. But again, it's a wild world out there, so being careful to be safe what data you're sharing. You don't want to put your financial details into like one of these things that are personal to you. Maybe put
yeah,
in some fake stuff, and then after you get the spreadsheet working, then put in some real numbers and things like that. Just be careful out there.
yeah, of course. Yeah, that's why I started this podcast in the first place, just to inform students on the future that they can have, or the career that they should or not should, the career that they would want to pursue in terms of AI, since it is an evolving career choice. So
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. And like, it's students in every part of the country. Like I was telling you about the League of Innovative Schools,
Yeah,
and I've got to tour schools in different parts of the country. I often live in Washington, D.C., or I live in Silicon Valley part of the time, but I've been to places like Talladega in Alabama, and I've been to rural North Carolina, and you just see like kids can have exciting careers in STEM grounded in the kind of work and problems and issues in every community in the United States. You don't have to like be in some kind of high tech center. And I think that's one thing this technology can help with is like seeing how it can help your local community with whatever is important in your community.
great. So that brings us to the last question of this podcast. So, an AI apocalypse in the context of AI in education is a speculative scenario as well as a topic of discussion involving dystopian consequences. In your opinion, is a societal concern about an AI apocalypse merely just hype for movies, or is it a genuine concern?
Well, I think we really have a lot to worry about there, and we have to be really careful. I think, we saw it in past elections where algorithms, let's not just use AI, let's just use algorithms, were used to manipulate public opinion and sway the vote
Yeah.
and really traffic in falsehoods and setting people against each other. And so, if you just think of the power of algorithms and the fact we all have devices and we all spend time streaming through, scrolling through some kind of media, um, you know, the there's some really big things to worry about how society works and about fundamental things like voting and about representative government and about being able to feel unified as a country um, and be strong as a country. And so there's a, I think with social media, when it started, people only saw the good side. Oh, it's going to be like community, it's going to be friends, and it's going to be networking and linking. And they only saw the good things. And then all these bad things started to happen as well.
Yeah.
And there was a dark side. And the people who were at the forefront of it were just not in tune with that dark side. So, I think with AI, it's how it's right now with generative AI. Out of the gate, there is somewhat more concern with ethics and with equality and equity and bias and all the things I'm talking about. And yet, there's a big news story at the end of last year where Sam Altman was pushed out of OpenAI and then came back to OpenAI. And in one way to look at that story is that OpenAI was run first as a nonprofit and wanted to really, work for the good. And then all this huge amount of money was being made. And at the end of the day, the big amount of money won. And so this huge amount of money at stake here. And whenever you have that huge amount of money and you just it concentrating power, just a few, there's a lot to worry about how we're going to have a safe and democratic society. And so I would be very concerned. I don't think it's just hype. I don't think the world's going to end tomorrow. I'm a hopeful person, but I don't think we can like fall asleep at the steering wheel here and just put it on autopilot and say, oh, it's going to be okay. I'm not so sure. And so that's why I definitely encourage people to learn, like what government is starting to do and how you can be part of helping create some sanity around this.
Right. Yeah, I think it's important that you mentioned it's not only like people, when they think about an AI apocalypse, they mainly think about robots and like them taking over the world. But it's more than that. It could be like AI apocalypse with you getting all your information stolen or stuff like that. So thank you for your amazing insight on that. So awesome. That brings us to the conclusion of this wonderful podcast with Jeremy Roschelle at the intersection of AI and education. So just to recap, it was very inspiring to hear about Dr. Rochelle's career path, tracing his journey from MIT to leading learning sciences research. Addressing the evolving landscape of AI policies in education, he shed light on the crucial role played by diverse stakeholders and entities. It was great to hear about his thoughts on avenues for effective teacher training and student-led initiatives. Our discussion went beyond traditional boundaries, where Roschelle answered the questions about AI apocalypse. Dr. Rochelle's rich experience and perspectives provided a clear understanding of how transformative power of AI in education can be important. On behalf of the student community and young AI enthusiasts, thank you, Dr. Roschelle, for taking us on this journey. We analyzed both the current state of AI in education as well as its future trajectory. Before we sign off, Dr. Roschelle, do you have any final thoughts for our audience or any extra advice for our high school community?
It's the very beginning of the year here, and I'm just very inspired to be part of what you're doing with your podcast and your ideas about how students can be leaders and really show the way and be part of society, interacting with their teachers, their communities, their families. So I'm just excited for the future that's possible if high school students like yourself get involved.
Thank you so much. So awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Roschelle, for joining me today. It's been an absolute privilege to have you on the show. With that, we wrap up this episode of AI Trends with Ash. Thank you all. See you all in my next episode. Until then, stay curious. Bye.